Okay, go. Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Excellent. So, as Brenda said, we are the spouses of chiropractors, and so we kind of go on a little bit different journey than all of you. And sometimes people don't realize that we're probably your biggest advocates, that we're probably your biggest referrers, and we are your absolute biggest supporters. And with that, I'm going to just share a little bit about my journey and how I got connected to chiropractic, because I had never heard of the term chiropractic until I was in college. I never even knew the word, I didn't know what it was, and I had never seen that you guys existed. And that seemed a little strange to me on my experiences that I was going through, because I knew that I was going to go into psychology and knew I wanted to be a psychologist since I was in grade school. How? I had no idea. But I had this really strange experience that kept happening to me. Is that from very young, people would come up to me and they would share really personal things with me all the time. And I don't know what that was. I don't really feel like I asked invading questions. It was just kind of like, hi. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in a grocery store and people would start telling me things. My husband constantly jokes about that. He's like, how did you find that out? I was like, I don't know. I'm just kind of standing there and people tell me these things. So there's something about that definitely had people drawing to me to share. And with that, it's very interesting because I think it's about a story, right? And a story isn't a made-up concept. A story is about our lives. And our stories have different chapters. And in every chapter, right, we kind of unfold to a different stage of where we're at. And I think it's really important to remember that as we go into healthcare, no matter which profession we go into, is that everybody has a story. And whatever they come to you with isn't typically the story. They don't start there. They start with a pain or a symptom because that's how we're educated and taught to give data, right? You're the doctor. They don't even understand it. No, you're the chiropractor. That's so much more powerful and all-encompassing. But when they come with their story, it's like an iceberg. They're barely just telling you the tip. It's all the stuff that unfolds underneath. And a lot of times in healthcare, we never get deep enough to really understand what are the struggles. We all come from an empathic space, right? We appreciate, oh yeah, that must be really difficult. This must really be, heartfelt. We can feel something. Because people who are feelers are people who go into healthcare, right? Because it's a very complicated, demanding type of profession, no matter which way we do this. Now, my journey ended up being very different. Again, didn't know anything about chiropractic. And so when I was already in college, I was already headed to that journey. I knew what I needed to do. I knew I needed to keep my head down. And I knew it was incredibly competitive to get in, right? You typically had, when I was going to grad school, 6 to 12 people that would get in once a year in every program. And you had a limited number of programs at that time. And so what they do is they make it, right, this incredibly intense journey to just try to get in. So I'm in graduate school, and they said, look to your left, look to your right, 50% of the people won't be here. And I was like, they're just trying to scare us. I know this game, right? This is not going to happen. And 6 months later, 50% of the people are gone. Wow, that makes you open your eyes. So we're supposed to be in this field as a clinical psychologist, right? It's about feeling and helping and understanding, and yet it really was a grind and a reduction and a removal. And I realized that started happening in all the settings that I was training in, such as in the emergency room, in the inpatient unit, on the outreach, on detox, on rehab. Wow, I kept seeing the same model. And that was scary, because I wanted to know people's stories. I wanted to know their heart space. I wanted to know what it was that connected them. So in that experience, right, that is a different journey, and I think it's really important for you to remember that sometimes you didn't get the story. You just got the tip of the iceberg. And it just takes a question. Tell me more about that. What is that like for you? Because sometimes we want to tell people how they feel, when in actuality we should actually explore and let them do that journey by themselves and find out how can we be supporters of people. What I love about chiropractic is you get to know feelers. It's such incredible heart space. It's great to work with students because they can't help but emit all that energy that you have as chiropractors, and they are just so vibrant. But if you sit in the classroom setting, right, they just look like they're bored and they're not interactive, they're not interested, and that's again because they have a story. And then you gotta start getting into their stories. You gotta meet them, you gotta see them, you gotta find their face, you gotta see them again in the campus and ask a question and ask a question. I see some students who are sitting here, I see some past students that are sitting here, which is so exciting, right? Those are some of the things that make that journey of being a chiropractor so beautiful. That is such a different lens that sometimes I think you forget to remind yourself how unique you are, how blessed you are to serve your patients. Because remember, you get to use your hands, you get to serve people, you get to really talk to people, you get to really spend time with people. Now, my profession, right, we clock it, right? We kind of go, okay, it's a 45 to 50 minute session, conceptually, right? So you spend a lot of time with an individual. But what we're trained to do is truly spend time with people. Slow the process down, really be able to be present with people, really connect to who they are. And that's pretty rare. So when I started working and training chiropractic students to understand what's going on in psychology, and yes, it's a great allopathic-based model. But if you don't understand what all your patients have gone through by the time they've gotten to you on that journey, you miss what some of the struggle was. For some people on that path, it's very lumpy. And it's not incredibly well supported throughout our process. There's a lot of stigma that people have ingrained in people to believe. So that we all have this notion that we give a diagnosis and somebody must act or be like that person. When in reality, that's on us. We've been brainwashed. And we need to go and erase those messages and make sure we truly understand what's their story. What's that personal experience? So I'm going to share a little bit about my story and how I got here, which has been a lot of bumps and different kind of experiences to get to the place where I'm okay with being in this profession, that it took me a long time. Did you ever have a moment when you said, is this for me? Many times when you're a student, you're like, is this the right place? I thought this was supposed to be loving and all this other stuff. It's like, all these hoops I have to go through. Well, we've had those moments, right, where it is complicated. There are spaces and times when I say, this is so unethical, this conflict with my belief systems. How do I serve at the same time? And to me, it always went back to the story. Serve the people, focus on the people, focus on who's in front of you, and that's how life changes. Just one person at a time. One moment at a time. Because sometimes that's all someone has, is a moment. Do you ever see the bulb share around for people? Right? Like if you're in DE and like someone says something, you're like, oh my gosh, that was the aha moment for you. We call it functional fixedness. Functional fixedness means that you're so stuck in one space and you can't see any other version of it because you're so stuck. You break that and all of a sudden, the aha moment's everywhere. To me, every time I hear about chiropractic, that's what you guys do every day. Not just from the nervous system, right? But from the shift in how you look at that perspective of health. And that's, again, a very different model from where I trained from, which was very allopathic. But I had an opportunity to meet you guys and learn about you and see you and get absolutely intrigued by what it is that you do. So I call this the Un-chiropractic story because, again, it's a very non-traditional way to find out about what chiropractic is and to be teaching at a chiropractic school and trying to navigate some of those two different worlds of what is it in mental health for chiropractic students to understand and to bring those worlds together to serve the people that understand the struggles they've been through and to understand they do have to navigate with healthcare professionals that surround them, with data that is surrounding them, right, and society changes that have occurred. And so with that, I'll share a little bit about my journey. So my story began before I even knew it began. At 12 years old, I remember this very clearly. I'm wearing feecy pajamas, right? This little one-piece thing at 12 years old. I remember that being a significant moment when I was walking down the steps. And the reason is because I slipped and went sliding down the entire set of steps on my back end with my head bunka right down the steps. And at 12 years old, that's when my health journey became more significant to me. I was the sick kid. My mom used to bring, I guess you call it a cosmetic bag. It was this big. But it was really called the Lisa bag. And that was because I was the sick one as a kid. I was always the one that had to have something or other that was given to me, but they didn't know what it was, because they didn't know what was going to happen while we were away. So I have 3 brothers, myself, and again, I was the sick kid. And it didn't really dawn on me because that was my life. Like it was part of my journey. But at 12, I fell down the steps, and all of a sudden, chronic earaches, chronic sore throats, going to specialists, going to a doctor, going to an orthodontist. It must be because I'm grinding my teeth. It must be. We just had all these things. We were searching. And what we figured out was, nope, no resolution, so we're just going to live with it. And I did. No real resolution to it. But at 12 years old, they kind of tried everything else that they could figure out in trying to help me. And one of my family's friends was an osteopath. And in that experience, we were in my home, so it was a safe place for me. But he basically lied me down on the floor, right, with no tables. So he lied me down on the floor. He took his knee, placed it in my back. He took his arms, he put them underneath both of my shoulder blades. I'm facing down. And he pulled my arms up, his knee went down. And all I remember is this loud noise from the top to the bottom. And I cried. Years old, I didn't really like it, I didn't understand it, I didn't feel threatened by him. I had close friends in the family, there's no like malintent, there's nothing that was bad. But whatever the emotional space, it did not physically hurt. Emotionally, I remember something wasn't right for me at that moment. I can't tell you what it was, but it really set me forward to understand that physical discomfort and emotional pain can absolutely intertwine. And that's where I think that my journey really kind of set me on the path of psychology. Because I didn't understand why was I crying. I was a tall girl, I was also an adolescent, right? I'm sure there's a lot of hormones, a lot of things happening that impeded that, but my vision and my understanding was that something emotionally wasn't right. Even though everybody kept telling me something physically was wrong. So with that, when I heard the word chiropractic, this is my vision, because right, this is my experience. I don't understand what this word means. And when that occurred was when I was at Emory University. I was doing my undergraduate work. I was going home for Thanksgiving. It was my first time going home since I had gotten there in August. And we're deplaned, right, as anybody who's traveled in the Atlanta airport, right? We're sitting there on the tarmac, but we're waiting. And with that wait, what's occurring is that there's these individuals. You know, students, they just look like students. I don't know how to describe it. They just look like students. And they're handing out business cards. They're going down the aisles, handing out business cards, and I have no idea what's on this card. And it says, Life Chiropractic College. This is actually Juice's card from when he was in college. I kept it. But it said Life Chiropractic College, and I was like, what's that? Right, like, I'm over in Atlanta side, right? I'm over in more towards Decatur at Emory University. I'm like, I don't even know what Marietta is, let alone what the word is chiropractic. So I go home. We finally able to take off. I go home and I said to my dad, I was like, Dad, what's a chiropractor? And he's like, oh, we have a chiropractor right in our town. And I was like, well, I don't get that. What do you mean we have a chiropractor in our town? How do I not know this? It was a small town in New Jersey, right outside of New York City. Lots and lots of commuters from our area. And I was like, this is kind of strange. Okay. So all of a sudden this weekend, I'm home for Thanksgiving. We have family, but we're seeing friends and stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, chiropractor. I see the chiropractic signs. I did not visually see it. Somehow it missed the marker. Now, my dad's explanation of chiropractic is probably not how you would describe it, because from his experience, right, he understood it from a very musculoskeletal perspective. That's how he had been, shared that information. So, again, interesting, but nothing changed. Just kind of first saw that information. Chiropractic came into my foresight. And then all of a sudden in 1987, I meet this chiropractic student who's studying in our libraries, which first of all, I don't know how to talk about that. And so I met this guy, and he's so passionate about chiropractic and about philosophy. And I was like, that's amazing. I am passionate about serving people. I am not really passionate about all the theories that, psychology drags out and all the research. Like, that's just not my it. I know it, but it's not my it. It's not what fuels me. That philosophy that he was sharing, I was so excited being a chiropractic student. I was like, I need to understand this. How can you be so excited about this stuff? And he quotes stuff and tells me stuff, and I'm the kind of person, I gotta read. I gotta learn. I gotta absorb. So he started taking me to seminars. What's the first seminar he took me to? And you can imagine. So So with that, right, all this information is coming in, and I start bringing up all these conversations with my parents and my family. Now, my dad's a medical doctor. My dad had his own journey, and he's a very unique person from that perspective. Because my dad was born in the Depression. My dad was a individual that really had a unique opportunity that probably, I will tell you from his upbringing and his experiences, he should never have been able to achieve what he achieved. My grandmother, right, not educated, actually not American born, really just coming from a very different mindset of how do we survive? That was her mindset was of absolute survival. And yet here's my dad who's able to get himself to be able to do that, because my dad at the age of 7 was already working. You darn socks when you're 7 years old. And when you're 9 years old, you do deliveries. And as you age, what he did to go through school is he sat there with books in front of him and he would walk and do deliveries and he would study. Well, he was delivering so often that he had such incredible study time that he could actually make really good grades. And his education became everything, because he said it's the only avenue for me to get out of what I did. And that's the path that they set us on. So yeah, so my dad's a medical doctor, and when Drew and I started dating, everyone said, "Dad's a medical doctor, this will not work out." That's a little intimidating. My gosh, you guys were a little harsh on me. I was like, what did I do? And everyone was like, oh, this isn't gonna work, Drew. You're not gonna make it. You will not go for the long haul. And of course, we joke about it with his friends now, but the reality is, it was pretty serious. People were telling us it's not possible to bring those two models together. See where I'm going with my story? I think I'm really passionate about bringing the models together to show not how you have to change your belief systems, but how you can actually empower other people to learn about what it is that you're sharing. If that journey, in 1988, right, we had just met, I guess it was about a year in, and he's like, I'm going to take you to the seminar. Because he's giving me all these books I'm reading, and I'm really, intrigued. I'm really excited about what it is he's sharing with me. It's all new and different. And I knew, like I said, since grade school, I wanted to go into psychology. And it struck me that your philosophy fit better than everything I was learning on the side of psychology. Aren't we here to serve? Well, if we're here to serve, then wouldn't we understand that the brain and the emotion and the physiology and everything's all interconnected? Well, if we understand that, then don't we actually have the reality of looking from within? And it was such a simple nuance that was, yes, they were telling us that, yes, we're educating from that perspective, but it's not the it. That became the it. This is the healer within. That is your it. To me, that is so powerful that sometimes I think you forget your own journey that you're going through. That you forget that other people who are training, right, are doing it from a different perspective. So in my training, right, as I mentioned, I'm in a hospital setting, I'm in inpatient, outpatient, I do rotate you through all the different rotations. And I'm coming home and telling Drew, well, let me tell you about this hospital visit. Oh my gosh, can you imagine this, that, the other thing? Here's the administrative part, and here's the legal part, and here's the ethical part, and there's all this stuff that's surrounding such noise to the process. And Drew would come home and say, I just adjusted this baby. They just come away home from the hospital. They just wanted me to adjust the baby. How honoring is that? Right? The stories that come from your life every day, do not miss the blessings that you are giving yourself, not just also what you give to other people. Because that's amazing. Those aren't our stories. That's not how we help people, unfortunately. So the first time I heard Dr. Sid, Drew said, Lisa, I want you to listen to the message, not the messenger, for the first time. And I was like, what? I'm from New Jersey, right? I'm from New York. We talk a lot, we move with our hands, we talk fast. And all of a sudden, I was like, I saw Dr. Sid and I was like, I don't know, what is he saying? I was like, I don't understand. What is he talking about? And he's having all of these concepts that 20,000 people around him are totally vibrating. They're not sitting in a seminar, they're vibrating with energy. And I was like, this is incredible. Whatever he's saying is making impact on people. So Dr. Sid talks about drop the keys. He takes his keys, and he drops them, and he takes his keys, and he drops them, and he takes his keys, and he's dropped them. And I'm like, Drew, what is going on here? Like, I need some connection here. First time seeing it, right? I'm in college, I don't quite get what all this stuff is about. And then again, I had my aha moment. The idea that gravity, right, is the thing that pulls down the keys, and no matter what you do and tell people that the gravity is going to work, that's a great scientific concept that says we can't argue it. But in reality, there's so much more he was saying, is that people go through healthcare, right, and are told to believe something in which the keys, when leaving the hands, will not drop. Because they want to defy something that doesn't even make sense. Most of our allopathic system, if you clock it out, honestly, doesn't make that much sense. When we talk about evidence-based, do you not question some of this evidence-based concepts? So one of the things when you have a PhD is they just drill you with research, which makes us really good doubters. And what we do is we tear research apart. So when students used to say, you know my research to me, I was like, you don't want me to do research to me. So what I'm going to do is my brain can't see anything else but all the compounds that are stuck in there. So it's very interesting as I look through, right, the healthcare, medical models, and all the doctrines are there. I keep thinking, just drop the keys, it all makes sense. That's how healthcare should work. That's how chiropractic works. But that's not how other models are using it. That's why we have a failing system. Right? The model itself, you start with a broken piece, you can't fix it. There's no more broken pieces attached to it. So we all struggle in that, trying to offer healthcare. But people have to get to you. They have to know about you. You have to understand your model. You have to understand what's unique to what you're doing. From the money hum, from the breath that he did, I was like, this is cognitive behavioral technique. He's just got this down pat. This is just amazing. Because what do we do when people get overwhelmed? We want them to start breathing. And when you can get people to oxygenate, you can transform their world. Because we all, as Americans especially, right, have a tendency to sit poor, posturing, right? We actually collapse our lung capacity and we breathe really, really short breaths. Most of us don't breathe correctly. In chiropractic, you have better posturing, you're well adjusted, you understand the concepts, so you probably are better off than 90% of the people before you ever actually got out there and practice, because you understand a health model. And in psychology, what we're doing is we're trying to help people learn tools to shift how their brain is working. Because we can have an emotion, and we can create an absolute physical and physiological response. We just take a different approach. Drew jokes and says, I work with people from the neck down, work from the neck up, it's like we're a great team. Right? And in reality, it's really not a separated entity, it's really that we're all working with the brain. We're just using different modalities to get there. My modality, right, is using and understanding. Your modality is that you don't have to use a modality, right? You get access right to the brain. And that's what's unique about it. Why do people in the medical model use all the wrong terminology? Because all we know is our stuff. And then we try to put your stuff into it, and we're like, oh, we don't, wait, you have unique terminology, you have unique concepts, you have unique theories, and you have a unique way in which you touch and connect to people every day. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. Sorry about this. Technological difficulty. Let's see if we can get back there. This is just like being in class. We have technology difficulties all the time. This is exciting. One more. Yeah, we can. It's not working. Okay, let's try that. So Dr. Grossman was such a powerful speaker, and on one such day, happened to be at DE, he's talking about this story. And the story really touched me because he mentioned something that was really a small part of what he was, his speech, what he was sharing. But he said, it's about the noon. I was like, what's the noon? I don't know what that is. It's like there's this tribal community, and they say when they get this feeling of what we would describe as in our environment as I feel nervous, I feel overwhelmed, I feel scared, right? And this is his kind of conceptualization. In America, what we do is we step away. He said, but what this community knew is that when you feel the noon, you feel the vibration of what we interpret as anxiousness or overwhelm or discomfort, we take a step toward it. And I was like, wow, that is brilliant. Like, we need to bring your speakers to our field because we don't get it. This is awesome stuff. And with that concept of the noon, when you step into it, right, that's what we're trying to help people do, is to override not what the brain should be doing, but how the brain is actually misfunctioning, right? With all these cues of danger that actually don't exist, right? And so every time you take that phone and you scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and I know I've heard lots of you guys say, yeah, these phones aren't great things, but you all have them. They're all sitting in front of you, right? They're bad things, but you all have them. We can't function in our society without them, but you're all getting these dopamine rushes over and over and over again. And with a dopamine rush, you don't realize you're actually shifting your own physiology, right? So we have radiation from these lights that are going on here, from not having natural sun, from a laptop, an iPad, a cell phone, right? It's just, we're in a healthy environment, and yet we're actually contaminating our own bodies. So imagine what he talked about the noon, is that we have the younger generation that is already set off in negative physiology, because all they do all day long is sit in front of computers. Many jobs, all people do is sit in front of computers. Do you ever think about your job, your career, your profession, and your way of life is all about standing, moving, and adjusting? Right? The key to health is movement. Because when we move, we can actually shift the brain, which actually then creates these incredible hormones and chemicals and all these beautiful things that do exactly what it's supposed to do. And so by inactivity, it's the worst thing we can do for people when we're helping them from a counseling perspective. We want them to be in movement, and sometimes they have to be in creative movement. And his story of the noon really struck me. And this is what DE gave me, was little pieces of information that created these wow phenomena that I get then to bring back to my profession. To say, this is amazing stuff. Fred Barge, this is the first book Drew ever gave me, Are You the Doctor? And Fred Barge is one of those people who was up there talking at DE, and Drew and I came down for breakfast one DE, and who's standing there but Fred Barge? And Drew's like, we are asking if Fred Barge would honor us for 5 minutes and sit with us for breakfast. And he sat down, and he had breakfast with us, which was absolutely amazing. But what I told him was, the book, Are You the Doctor, spoke to me. Why did it speak to me? Because this is my profession, and where is it? I don't see it in anything that I learn about. It is the doctor within. I was like, again, this is brilliant stuff. You guys are not taking credit for what you have actually created, produced, and supported in all of you. That's pretty awesome. If you haven't read this book, you really need to. Because that concept that says we're internal healers inside ourselves really made me question. Because at that time, right, I'm in college doing undergraduate work to go to graduate school. And I said, where is this stuff? I said, we're going to get to graduate school. That's where it'll be there. So I go through graduate school, and I asked Drew, I'm like, where's this stuff? Because it's missing, right? We didn't just go to DE for Drew, we went to DE for me. Because boy, did you guys really feed me to remind me why did I do what I do, to go through how I was going through it, to create a totally different opportunity to understand human interaction, human feeling, and how do we help and serve people every day. So I did not meet Dr. Reber, but I did see his wife speak once, and he's the most jailed chiropractor. And the thought that I had is she's telling her story about her husband and how he wasn't able to finish his book, and so she helped, finish the final pages and whatnot. I was like, you got somebody that went to jail for your profession. I don't know anybody that went to jail for psychology. Like, they just did it. Like, maybe because people thought they were insane, which is the term that they used back then, right? It was insanity. Maybe they thought they were locking them down. But the reality was that somebody went to jail for you to be here today. Wow, that's unbelievable. How many professions have that truly say, I stand up for myself? And I stand up for what this means, and I stand up bigger and broader, knowing that I'm going to change the future for generations to come. Isn't that why you're all here? To remind yourselves and to help remind other people that there's generations of people that need you. And not just the patients, but also those chiropractic students that need to hear your story, that need to hear and be reminded People who have no idea who these amazing, famous people are. And famous not because they're shining, but because they had such incredible wisdom at that time. And that's where I think that you're here trying to remind yourselves and make a difference, as you do already every day, but our students really need to hear and understand how come this is so powerful? How come this makes such a big difference? So lasting purpose, I remember when Drew, brought me over to Life Chiropractic College. I'm at Emory University, and if you know anything about Emory, it has a lot of money, a lot of Coca-Cola money. And what we would do, the way that you would know a building was being built at that time in the 80s, was that you would literally see flat ground and a Coca-Cola machine, I kid you not, with a plug in the middle of like a dirt path. There's nothing out there but a Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola funds, right, is where we got most of our funds in that day. I don't know currently today how much of that is there, but the reality is, you knew it. So, the story of how Drew and I met was that I was actually in the medical school library, even though it's undergrad, because it was one of the quieter environments. I'm a very distracted learner, so I sat at the bottom. We had these beautiful winding steps, and there's like all these glassed-in environments. I used to be gorgeous library, right? And I'm sitting at the bottom of the steps with these big, huge, comfy chairs, right? Because I know I have to have somewhat of distraction to be able to study. And so what happened is I'd sit at the bottom steps and I'd watch every single person that was walking, right? Constantly distracting myself and not actually, it took me 5 times as long to study, but I just knew myself, I couldn't sit myself in a cubicle in the back. And so, lo and behold, who do I meet but a chiropractic student in a medical school library at Emory University. And in that journey, Drew and I started talking, and he started telling me things about chiropractic. And with that, my whole life changed, because he challenged me. And most people in my life didn't challenge my thought process. And that's what I really wanted to understand, is that there's something uniquely different about the way that we think and feel. And he was the only one that was able to get in and really create that challenge. And he started quoting all these people and letting me hearing audio tapes and books, and that was my language, right? It's like I need to learn before I can agree. Now, because of the journey I shared with you about my 12-year-old falling down the steps, right? I don't like the sound, please don't use this against me. I can't stand the sound of cracking knuckles, right? So I have 3 brothers, what do they do all the time? They even come and like crack my knuckles. That sound is actually, right, connected to a 12-year-old experience that created a very emotional connection in my brain. And that's where I became fascinated, is that we can have this emotional space. And what we were taught was something very different, that if something is myelinated, you cannot break the myelinization. Well, you know that's not true. But that's what we were taught. We were taught you can't break myelinization. But today, you absolutely knew 100% with evidence-based proof that says that's not true. So, right, people in our age groups and above have different data than our current population coming in, and we've got a chance to see people be defied in their information that says, this was truth. Oh no, that's not, right? Here's new science. What I love about chiropractic is that when something comes out in psychology and we're like, oh, here's the new data. I'm like, oh, chiropractic, you guys have been talking about this for 10, 20 years. I already know this. I'll give you an example. You guys talk a lot about otitis media and how getting adjusted can actually make such incredible impact on especially little ones and how we can change their course of their health because of that. And what do you think is coming out in psychology? We're saying, oh, it's so interesting. We're finding this information that otitis media is connected to learning disorders. And the more that someone has otitis media, the higher the likelihood of having a learning disorder and therefore higher likelihood of other types of diagnoses. Again, you didn't say that in your seminars, but you sure talked about the connection, which makes total sense. Because if you have an impediment in which that brain and interaction is not functioning, not only is it in your health, expression of your physical health, right? It's also in your brain functioning and how you cognitively work as well. So we actually see a lot of those issues. So lasting purpose, I heard it. You guys told me about it. It made a difference. And I remembered it through every course of undergraduate through graduate to understand. So here's the crazy things that my husband has gotten me convinced to do. Come from a pretty traditional background. And so I sure didn't say like, hey, we're gonna go do a fire walk. I told him after the fact, but definitely not during it. And so when we went to go and do a fire walk, tell you, my understanding of physiology was going crazy. My heart's pounding, I'm sweating. I'm like, what am I doing with all you crazies? No offense. But I was like, this is really out of control. And what really stood out to me is that it wasn't about the fire. We were told to look at the other side, because this is just all the noise that we get in our environment. And that is therapy. That's counseling, right? Now we don't tell people to walk on fire, right? Prove it towards liability. But the reality is that what we're telling people to do is to challenge their brains, to look from another perspective, to supply something else from that perspective, to allow people to live a vibrant life. This is an extreme version of it for me. It was a big to-do. And I was pregnant at the time with our son Palmer, which we did not know it was a Palmer at the time. But I walked across fire. And it was huge for me because Drew and I decided to have a home birth. And I had a lot of family pressure to say, what are you talking about? And I remember the emotional experience I had walking across fire to say that is one of the most empowering things that I did, because not only did I walk across fire, I made a decision that I had to do what was right for me and for us and for our belief system to go and make that happen. The second time we walked on fire, I now have a little baby in my arms, and I said, I'm not doing this fire walk without him. I walked the first time with him, I'm walking the second time with him. And I literally just put people like, you cannot walk with me. I was like, yes, I can. I was like, absolutely. We do not separate from this journey. This is something that we do together. So Palmer's first fire walk, right? He was in utero, and I don't know how old he was second time around, but he was a little one in arms. Those are the things that, right, you create that possibility. I don't believe you have to do a fire walk to change your life, but it sure is an incredible opportunity to do. Then we did bending of bars. You've never seen the wrought iron bars? Yeah. So you basically put a wrought iron bar in your neck, right? With a little piece of paper, which I do appreciate that Chuck really loves, a little piece of paper there. And then Drew was standing on one side, I was sitting here, and we had this straight bar. And they said, all you have to do is bend the bar. I honestly could not figure out what that meant. And we, of course, I don't know what we're thinking, why do we go first? Like, I needed a model to see how this worked. And somebody in the crowd, right, screams out to us, you need to look in each other's eyes. Do you know how powerful it was? Because in one moment, Drew and I were pushing, and I honestly thought my throat was going to puncture. It was like a scary moment for me personally, because I was like, I had doubt, and that's when doubt comes, right? Physiology changes, and then everything else starts to shift. And as soon as that person yelled out, look in each other's eyes, we looked from pushing, we looked up, and we literally collapsed into each other's arms. We had this metal bar, wrought iron bar that just fell to our feet. That is the power that you learn about in DE. That there's something so much more powerful in what it is we believe, how we believe it, and how we execute it. That is life-changing. That was such an incredible moment that if I put myself back there, I can remember that moment. What else did we do? Oh, putting a piece of wood and, breaking that was a pretty awesome feat. But writing down on one side, what are your blockades? And writing on the other side, where do you want to head to? It's again, just like a fire walk. Don't look to the problems. Break right through them, because everything you want is on the other side. That's the motivation that's there, and that is the power of the brain that can actually release all those chemicals to make us feel empowered. And part of that chiropractic adjustment, right? You shift people's nervous systems every day, and that is so powerful, because the healing isn't just when you adjust them. The healing is when they've left and their body keeps to ignore it. Same thing with counseling. It is not just during that session. It's about how people think and ruminate and think through it and process and come back and do the work again. Right? Our work is a constant work in process. A home birth was, I would say, the most empowering moment that I can't even describe. Did get a little bit of pressure, not a lot of pressure, to say, what are you thinking? Right? My dad, understandably, is worried. My grandfather asked me, he's like, Lisa, I really don't understand why you're doing this. He's like, I just want the best for you. He said, all the things that I've done in my life have been so that my family and generations can be in the best and safest opportunity. said, Grandpa, where are all your siblings? Because he had quite a lot of them. He had 10 siblings. I was like, where were they all born? And literally in a moment, he was like, oh my gosh, we were all born at home. He's like, he said, my thought was that was a bad thing because today there's technology and I can help you afford that opportunity. By doing all the things I did generationally, I give you that opportunity. He's like, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. One of my uncles is an OBGYN. We had an interesting conversation. It was kind of like a family intervention of like, can we convince you to, that could you please go to a birthing center? Like anything. Just try something else. We had this really interesting conversation about the lies and about that. And I will have to say I had an incredibly supportive family, but I had a very confused family, right? And I knew that it came from love. I knew that their fear wasn't fear because they didn't trust in me. Their fear was because they didn't understand the concept behind it. And that was very much understood. So these things that lasting purpose helped me understand and helped me attempt to do in my life to push me farther than I ever would have done. Because if you knew me as a kid, I'm actually quite shy, I'm quite quiet, I'm quite introverted, and yet I have the capability of standing in front of a group of people. I don't know most of you, but I know you. And that's, again, what's really unique about chiropractic. You could be in a crowd of strangers, and yet you guys are so wonderfully welcoming. And I'll tell you, when I go to a seminar for psychology, they don't ask me this way. They're very subdued, I'd say almost on the border of depressed. And it was like, it's just low energy type of group. We're very intense people. So I don't kind of fit in there, right? Because I am just sort of this more upbeat, more energized in the way that I talk and how I describe things. And so it is really interesting to be part of going to seminars, going from practice management to techniques to philosophy from day one. Because I told you, I was like, I want to be part of your life, expose me to this all. But see, the problem was, I took everything in you guys had told me, and I became one of the radicals. And everyone's like, could you calm down? Chiropractors start telling you and I, you guys are over the edge, stop doing it all. Because we had a home birth, and then we decided to become, a macrobiotic, and then we were vegan, and then we were raw food. Like, we did everything. How could we just work? We homeschooled our kids. We did some weird stuff. And our son Palmer, right, used to say to us when he was little, he would probably be out of grade school, and he said to us, you guys look so normal, but you act so weird. Like, what is wrong with you? And he used to call us tree-hugging granola people. He goes, you don't look like it, but you guys are weird. And what I love now that our son's 30 years old, and he's like, all into recycling and good values. He works for a nonprofit, he is so great. He's gluten-free, he's very aware of nutrition. And he's just so well into the concept. He's like, I can't believe you guys did this to me. He's like, this is so embarrassing. This is the last thing I thought that I would agree with. So, of course, we named our son Palmer because it changed his life. He had his own chiropractic miracle story. And so in 1995, when the centennial came about, we absolutely had to go. Why we had to go was for many reasons. One is because it's meant so much to Drew to be part of that journey and be part of that experience. We obviously saw Dr. Sid multiple times throughout our journey, but definitely seeing him there. You can see there's a picture of Drew and Dr. Sid taking a picture, and there's Palmer's butt right there in the corner. I don't know how we got into that picture, but when I found it, I thought it was funny. It's like, Palmer has been with us everywhere. People used to joke with us that Palmer was with us all the time. And as he got older, he sat there and read or whatever. But boy, osmosis is a pretty incredible thing. Because Palmer got it. He didn't want to be a chiropractor, but he got the philosophy and he understood it, and he lived his life in his version of how he understood it and how he wanted to make that happen. So for me to watch the chiropractic centennial was pretty amazing. It was the first time I'd been at Palmer Chiropractic, looked at the museum, looked at all these spines. Sorry, I went into psychology, I don't like that kind of stuff. But okay, I get it. It was pretty amazing seeing spines from around the world and what we had a chance to see. What I think is a shame for our students currently is that a lot of this history is not an easy visual experience. So I will tell you, I saw that 60th anniversary poster, and I think, some of our students, they really need this. So I think some of our students, and I want to hand it out to our student ambassadors. So you keep doing what you're doing, because our students need what you're doing, and they need to kind of find out about it and how you're doing it. So Palmer, since Palmer is probably about 3-4 years old at that time, was very much part of that journey. And so understanding a chiropractic lifestyle for me coming from a medical model was really kind of different. I really was trying to learn about it and see what does that look like. You guys all stood on stage and told me about it, but you know what I did? I interviewed all of you. I was like, let me tell you how this is going to work. And so I would see that through the green books. She would share the philosophy with all the green books in our house. Adjusting, Mrs. Palmer adjusting, his grandmother, Drew, and all of our entities. One time I picked Palmer up from school, and he said, I got hurt when I was at school. He was like, I think it was. And I picked him up, and he's like, I want to go to Dad's office and get adjusted. Awesome. So Drew's doing this thing in his office, and all the little kids either drew a picture or they wrote something out. And Palmer's like, I want to do one too. So this is my handwriting. I wrote this, and that's Palmer's version of his signature at the time. He said, I hurt my knee because a little bit of subluxation was squeezing onto nerves. I went to Dr. Drew's office and he adjusted me. I almost felt better. But after it was almost better, God had loved the subluxation, and I felt much better. Drew wrote a book way back when in his early journey in chiropractic, and so you can see Dr. Sig's hands, who really BJ Palmer's hands, we know that. But Palmer was at a seminar with us, and he's with another chiropractic student, trying to keep him busy and entertained. She's like, oh, let's put your hand down, let's trace it. Palmer's like 6 years old or something. And so Palmer's like, hey, how about I put my other hand down and trace the other one, it'll look just like an adjustment. Kids get chiropractic. You guys don't have to work that hard, they get it. It's when we grow up that we don't get it, and we use the version of intelligent brain that's not so intelligent, that challenges every aspect of it. Palmer's at school, and he tells me, oh yeah, one of my friends need to get adjusted. And I was like, what do you mean get adjusted? He's like, oh yeah, I adjusted him. I said, Palmer, tell me what that means. He's like, well, I did a neck turn. And I'm thinking, okay, kindergarten, is this a good idea? He's like 5, 6 years old. Yeah, I love that he's on that path, but we kind of had to talk about what is a neck turn for Palmer and what he's allowed to do. So, he grew up with beer candling and all these crazy things. Juicing, which today everybody knows about. 30 years ago, people did not know what that was. That was weird stuff, as some of you know. So when we left from New Jersey to come down to Georgia, Palmer's one picture he wanted before he left was what he referred to as his birthing spot, because he was born in that home. And so the house was empty of furniture. He laid down and he took a picture because that is his birthing spot, and he wanted to have a record of it. Favorite story is that Palmer was in grade school, and we just moved down to Georgia, and they all have these pictures up at the top, right? They hid their names, and all the pictures are in there. I walk into the classroom setting, and I'm like, I know which one's Palmer's, because the colors don't match, everything's out of line, and I'm like, oh, okay, Palmer didn't like this assignment, I know it. And the teacher comes up to us, because we're brand new, we've been there maybe a week, and she's like, do you think that maybe Palmer might have, some colorblindness? I was like, well, I appreciate you asking. He was colorblind, so we have to actually check that out. He's not. I said, but can you do me a favor? Can you have him draw a picture? I'm going to actually do the assignment tomorrow, and you tell him however you wanted his directions, and the directions are basically going to say, draw. I want you to color it in as if it's outside, whatever you see outside. So you can use any other words that you want. So I'm not going to say anything to him until tomorrow. I said, but if you would do that, I said, then I would definitely have a conversation with you. So we come back the next day, and with that, she said, that was amazing. That was amazing. Palmer drew everything the right colors, he drew in the lines. I said, oh, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing this. I never thought about having to tell people something in a different perspective. And that's what you guys are as chiropractors. You work from a different perspective all the time. Palmer's in health class. Again, kindergarten class was great when we moved down here and had this great journey. And she goes, you know what, from our last living experience that you told me, she's like, Palmer didn't answer the question. He wrote something in. It was a multiple choice question. I was like, he's like 5 years old, what could you possibly ask him for a health question? What is the best thing for you to drink? And the answer was milk. Palmer didn't like any of those choices, so he wrote water. And he's 5, he really didn't know how to spell water, but it was as close to version he could get to. So the teacher called him up and asked that question, and she came out to me at the end of the day, and she said, thank you for your lesson. Because what I asked Palmer was, what is the answer? He said water. He gave his own little late lecture of the why it's supposed to be water and not supposed to be milk as your best option. And she said from now on, I told Palmer that anytime he has a different answer, even if he can't write it down, he can tell me and I'll write it down. And as long as he can give me an explanation, I will give him credit for that. And I was like, this kid's a navigator, right? That's what you want to do. Empower your kids to share the philosophy of chiropractic and the model and the mindset that says that they can advocate for themselves. And how do we do that? My last story that I'm going to share with you is Palmer's in Drew's office while he was adjusting, and I went to go to dinner, and I came back. Palmer had to have been like maybe 3-4 years old. And Palmer's by the photocopy machine, and the photocopies are going. He's got like 20 of these same photocopies. He's like, Palmer, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm taking an x-ray. I was like, awesome, Palmer. I was like, but explain to me, what is the difference? He's like, oh, this is when his neck is turned, this is after an adjustment, and his head is straight. He's like, I got this down. He's like, but I had to do an x-ray. We had to do a little, education about over-radiation, might be a problem, and, he's only 5, we have to kind of tell him. Our kids are the amazing part of our journey, right? They know and they understand, and they love this journey with you, and we're just here to be part of that experience, right? In helping, what can we do, and how can we do it to figure out next steps, right? I love that this is such a powerful opportunity for all of us. Thank you. And I hope you hear what I'm saying. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to see from a different lens. For me to be able to realize that there's a different way of healthcare, that there's a way to serve our patients and to be there with them and to nurture them, to not just know it, but to do it, and to actually be able to uplift people every day. It is such an honor to be able to teach chiropractic students because they come with marvel. They come with amazingness. And they come with special hearts. And I love that they all have unique stories. They're not afraid to share them. They love challenging us up front. Boy, if they can ask a question that we don't know, they are so excited, right? They want to put us in our place. But what I love about it is that the number one thing is that they tend to understand that I'm actually a body chiropractor. And I think of that as the most wonderful mistake they can make. I say, I feel honored that you do not know that I'm actually not a chiropractor. Because I've trained and I've learned and I've studied and I've been part of your world, and I want to continue doing that, and I want to continue sharing and supporting. We had the opportunity to have a mini DE at our location 2 weeks ago with many other DE speakers that were there for our students, excited and sharing and vibrant. And they need this. So please don't stop coming, and please don't stop educating, please don't stop learning and doing what you're doing, because it is a powerful shift. Not just when you're adjusting, even when you're up here on the stage, you're making a difference, right? I'm not a chiropractor. I just sat in the environment and somehow I absorbed all this, and you guys made a difference for me. So thank you for that every day, and keep doing this, so I really appreciate you guys.